I had like this whole intro act going, explaining that it's been 10 years since anybody from eLearn Design has actually presented at a Moot, apologizing a little, saying we're a little out of practice. And Derick introduced us, all on his own. We've decided to do this as sort of a team event because it's been quite a while. So there's Derick, he's our, and you'll have to excuse me reading direct, multi-tenancy Moodle developer who's leading the session. We have got Mary, who's down the front. She's another member of the development team, and she's here to make sure and see him right. And I'm Lou. I deal with eLearn Design Ops. I'm up here so that if anything goes wrong, and I've got in here I can share the humiliation. I think I've covered that bit already, which is nice to know. So we're here today to talk about automating compliance-based training using non-standard Moodle. The variant we work with is called EMA. She's open source. She's been around since 2010 and was specifically developed to bridge the gap between Moodle's traditional educational application, and the type of training that's delivered in a corporate environment. So, Derick, you need to hit the button. What's the difference between compliant-based training and standard training?
Thank you. Thank you, Lou. First of all, apologies for the wrong slide up there. We are in the right video and the right talk now. So, the difference between standard-based training and compliance-based training is pretty much a simple one, in that your normal educational establishment or course you undertake as part of corporate training, you go in, undertake that course, complete it, maybe once if it's corporate, you never come back, you have your certificate and you leave and you go somewhere else. Or you, at the end of the term, before you go into the next term, the course is reset to allow the next cohort of people to go in. Compliance-based training is an ongoing set of training where it is based on the user who completes courses under their own steam or their own timeframes and are then re-enrolled on the same courses or removed from the original course and re-enrolled on those same courses again over and over and over, so that we keep a history and a track of what their completion information is, when they passed that course, when they started it, potentially the certificates they have for this. And having that information allows for compliance and reporting on compliance to say, in this history, here's all the times this user has this, they were always up to date with their training, so if something were to go wrong, then you're covered for insurance or you're covered for ISOs. How are we going to implement this? Well, as Lou said, one of the tools we use is EMA, and it's basically a set of plugins which sit on top of Moodle, so EMA still is Moodle, and is some core code changes to allow for multi-tenancy in particular, and then allows for reporting and storing of this information from the users. So, obviously, in the first step of this, for compliance-based training, we need to get the user onto the course. I'm going to go through this in a kind of slow method, because at the end of this, I'm going to come through with some scenarios and some examples of clients that we've had, or clients that we've used this kind of methodology to allow them to implement the compliance-based training and certification and reporting that they require. So basically, you get somebody onto the course, they're either going to be enrolled by a manager, or they're going to be enrolled by a member of staff or somebody else. They're going to find a course and enroll themselves on that course. They're going to have a license for this, and I'm going to go into licenses a bit later on, because again, this is a feature of EMA. But a license is basically a token that you would use to gain access into a course. Or they're enrolled onto that course in some form of automatic way. This, again, would be potentially from a plugin or some other feature that says, from this rule, we get put onto this course. Licensing and automatic are two kind of, as I say, the licensing one is EMA. Automatic enrollment is an optional plugin freely available from the Moodle plugins database. Once you've been put onto that course, then you need to finish it, right? So course completion is built on the activity completion that you set as the teacher or the presenter or the owner of that course. You say, to get this, to achieve this certification, you must meet these things. And that could be as simple as, here's a SCORM object, get this to completion, pass it. It could be, here's some quizzes, here's some assignments you have to upload. You define the course completion information from all of this, and it's this course completion information that's important for us for using EMA, because this is the bit that we track and then store as the user works through. So you set the flow of the course, user is enrolled in that course, they go through to completion, they get their certificate potentially at the end of it, and then where we get to. And at that point, we're kind of hitting the limits of what core Moodle will give for you. Users completed the course, what do you do with them then? So if you unenroll a user from the course, and I'm sure there's lots of people here who have done this, if you unenroll a user from the course, some of the information is still kept. Their quiz attempts are still there, their assignments could still be there, the grades are gone, the enrollment's gone, so there's this kind of mishmash of what has actually been kept and what has actually been removed from this course. If the user's re-enrolled in that course, then they're starting from a kind of odd state of some things are there and some things are not. You could reset the course, which clears everybody out. But then if you clear everybody out, then on compliance-based training, it doesn't really work so much for you, because I start today, I'm working through my training and I finish them in 3 weeks' time. Somebody else started 2 weeks ago. Somebody else started 6 months ago. If I reset the course, it's going to clear everybody down. Also, the course completion information is not there when you've been removed from the course. There's some optional plugins. I mentioned them because there's course recertification and there's course re-enrollment plugins that happen are in the plugins database. And they kind of do the same kind of tasks as we do in EMA. But they'll only remove you from the course, they'll reset your interactions with the course, but they don't keep that information unless you do something manually to remove that or store it somewhere else. It could be in a database system or an HR system or somewhere else, and you've got this. But it's not keeping it in one place for the user, it's not keeping it in one place for the managers, it's not keeping it in one place in the system, which makes it easily accessible. So what is the solution? Okay, we are talking about EMA here. So EMA is, as I said, Moodle. It is a suite of plugins which are being developed for Moodle, and they sit on top of this, which allows for multi-tenancy, and those tenants then have collections of users and collections of courses. They have a hierarchy, they have roles for management and for reporting, and it allows for this whole structure that sits on top of Moodle that makes it more corporate. Now, Moodle Workplace does a very similar thing. Moodle Workplace is, as everyone knows, a SaaS model of having a Moodle system. EMA is entirely open source. We developed it, or started to develop it back in 2010. It's been on GitHub since 2013, thank you. It's been freely available to everyone to download and use. We feel of it in the same way as we do for Moodle. Moodle is a piece of software, is free. You shouldn't pay for Moodle, but what you pay for is the services around about it. Hosting, support, consultancy, development. EMA is the same. For us, EMA is Moodle. The only reason we have released it as a full version on GitHub is that we've made some changes to the core code to allow for this multi-tenancy to work. So things like if a user is on one system and they're one tenant, they shouldn't be able to see the users of another tenant. If the courses are assigned to one tenant, they shouldn't be able to see the courses assigned to another tenant. What it does have, though, is it allows for this management hierarchy, which, so you have a corporate structure, or it allows for courses which can be tied to one tenant, two tenants, all the tenants, some tenants, none. And those courses which are tied or shared between those tenants are exactly the same course. So you don't have multiple versions of this course, you've only got one course. And then we use the 4 separate groups in the courses to allow users to be kept apart and to allow easier management for yourselves looking after the system, because you only have one course to update, not 20. One of the other options for the kind of recertification thing would be to have, here's the 2024 course, here's the 2025 course, here's the 2026 course. These things, again, you're starting to go up against management issues, space issues, complexity of your data. Everything else is, difficult to use. So if we keep one course and then reuse that same course over and over again, but do it on an individual basis, then we get this system that allows us to do the certification and provide reporting on this that we're looking for. So there is this other reporting data store that we have for this. We store the information in another set of tables. They're outside of the Moodle tables. So as a user journeys through the course, as they enroll, as they complete, as they update their grades, that's stored elsewhere and then gets referenced for when that user is removed from the course. The other thing that we add on to this is the idea of a kind of end of when this training will expire for people. So you're undertaking a course in health and safety or manual handling. You have to retake that course every year. You can see when you've completed that course, 365 days later, that course has expired and you have to do it again. So this is then added into the system outside of Moodle on top of this in the plugins, and allows for you to say automatically say in the system, I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to send your manager an email to say your training's about to expire. Hey, you need to go do this again. And when this course expires, you can then say, Derick, right, you've done your IT security course a year ago. You need to do it again. I'm going to clear you from that course. You can then be re-enrolled in that course in some way and start over in that course from scratch. So we're building this ecosystem, this kind of infrastructure that allows for this recertification to happen. This is what it looks like. So in the UMA system, you have a table that's there, a page for management, where you have all the courses that are assigned to the tenant that's there. I'm going to talk in this initially as though this is one single system, because most of the people who we've got as clients who are using this, they're a single instance. They're using this in their workplace, for a better word. They're using it in their institution, and it's for their own staff. So they don't have many tenants in this, but this is still a multi-tenant thing, and I'll come on to that much, much later. So there's a setting, as I say, training expires after. There's a setting for when you send an email to them. There's a setting for when the enrollment expires. They've got warning emails that will be sent out, as I said, to the manager, to the user. And then you have options there for what type of sharing that course is, and other options of things like, does this course have a grade? Like lots of training we do in a corporate world, it doesn't matter that you've got 5% in the course. What matters is you turned up and you viewed the course, you got your certificate. Participation is all they need. So there's no requirement for you to get a passing grade of 80% or 90% or what have you. So on the courses where you don't care about grades, you can turn that off. And then this thing of sharing. So a course can be open shared where it's visible to all tenants. A course can be closed shared where you have it set to one tenant and another tenant, but not this one. Or you have it set to closed shared where it's only just this tenant that gets them. So the model for that is someone's come along to you and said, I need you to build me a course on this, and it's going to be bespoke to us, and I'll pay you 20 grand. So that tenant, that course is theirs, it's not shared, it belongs to just them. If you have clients who are working in, say, the IT, or working in, say, business and finance people don't care about courses that are IT courses. So you would share your business and finance courses with just them and your IT courses with just those tenants. So that's what sharing does for you. These training expires after, enrollment expires after. What they're really for is when this notional idea of my training is going to expire, I'm going to send an email to the user 30 days in advance. Derick, you have to redo your course in manual handling. I get an email from it, my manager gets an email from it. At that point, I am cleared down from the system. The enrollment expires after is for a slightly different case where 30 days after I have completed that course, I am removed from that course entirely, and then I'm free to re-enroll in that course or be re-enrolled in that course. So I've got specific examples again of use cases of why you would use these and different reasons. Briefly mentioned licenses. So licenses provide a way for site owners, yourselves, to control how your clients are able to use your courses in their tenant. So if you didn't have this kind of model for it, every tenant manager would be able to enroll all of their users onto your courses without any kind of controls around about it. I will just add everyone. If you're selling these courses, how are you going to stop that? How are you going to control that? How are you going to make money from this? How are you going to control how that access or overuse of this is? And that's where this is where licenses come in. So it sets on a restriction basically of how many users, what courses they have access to, for how long, and until when. So you have an enrollment length, you have a sell-by date, you have a selection that you're giving to them. And it means that if you've got this catalogue of courses, you can say, these courses that you've purchased from me, I will share them to you, I will give you licenses to them. You as a manager of this tenant can then allocate those licenses to your staff, and I don't have to because you've got thousands of people and I'm a company of 12. And you keep using them up until they're gone or until they've reached their expiry date. Simple license. So we have 3 different types. Standard is most flexible, blanket, and reusable. With licenses, it allows you to also mimic the kind of enrollments as you have in core Moodle, so manual enrollment. So a standard license is a manual enrollment type. I, as a manager, have been given a license set for a set of courses that has, an access until, from September 2025 in this example to 2036. I've got 180 days that the license is valid for, so that means when a user logs into the course, they have access to that course for 180 days. I can allocate out 100 of them. I can make it so that it's instant access, which means when I give this license to someone, they're immediately enrolled in that course. Now that's a manual enrollment, but it's still under the control of the people in the system. Or I can make it so that it's not instant access and it becomes a token which I've given to my member of staff to say, go to this course. You can start it whenever you want, at which point the clock for the enrollment starts when that token is used. If you haven't used that token, I can take that off you and give it to somebody else. Blanket type licenses are more like self-enrollment courses where you define the same structure, the same kind of constraints around about it, but the courses are then listed and available to the users who say, I want to do this course in, and I will enroll myself on, and that will take 1 license away. As long as I have the license available for that user to use for that course, then it is then able for the user to enroll themselves onto that course. Reusable licenses are more like access to resources. You have a course that you're presenting that people are going through for a certification in a particular way, but you may have a set of resources for them, support resources for them. It doesn't matter who uses them, but the client can only use 10 of them at any given point in time. They can have 10 users enrolled in that course. So I give that license to somebody, they're enrolled in the course, they use the resources, I take that license off them, give it to somebody else. I take the license off them and give it to somebody else. So anyone can have that license, but it just means that there's only 10 at any given point in time have access to that course. And at the end of it, instead of having an enrollment duration for those people in those courses, when that license expiry hits, then they are removed, they no longer have access. And in all of these cases, there is the option to have a clear and expire, which means that when the license expires, everyone who's on that course gets cleared down automatically, irrespective of what state they're in. Have they completed it? Are they partway through it? Have they gone and been and used, finished the course, whatever? It also means that if you give them that license again, even if they were partway through, they're starting again from scratch. So you don't have to complete the course. You still have the benefits of, well, last year I didn't get this, but I have to try again this year. And actually, as people who are selling courses, you've got this thing where you're controlling what they get and what they have. Talk about donuts. Possibly this is an analogy. So, standard license. Manager brings a big box of donuts, mixed donuts into the office. Manager gives the donuts out to each member of staff. The use by date is the license end date. The time to go stale is, the enrollment length of time. If the donuts are individually wrapped, then the staff can take it back to the manager, take it back to the box and switch it. Don't like this one, don't like that flavour, give me another one. But if it's been unwrapped, then you can't, because who wants a half-licked donut? The blanket licenses, instead of that, again, big box of donuts brought in for the staff to use, but this time staff go and help themselves. It's just open, here, go help yourself to the donuts that are here, just pick the ones you like, but then there's no real constraints over, like, there's only 12 chocolate and there's 3 iced. There are as many of each of the types as you want. So we give chocolate, iced, and jam donuts, but you can have 20 of any one of them or any mix up to 20 of them. Last one is more like an RFID chip or a donut that's got one of them. So you have access to hot desking where you can have 12 people can use the hot desking room at any given point in time. Who has that depends on who's got the key to get into that. So you're passing out those things. Unfortunately, in that case, you can't eat those ones. The reason why I mentioned licenses is one of the other things that sits underneath that is if someone is cleared down from a course and you have a license and there is another license that's available for them to use, then they are automatically reassigned a license from the ones that are given to allow them to re-access that course themselves. There's also, as you saw in the thing, there's an option for auto-enrollment in the EMA courses where it's more for as users are added into the tenant or added onto the company, they are automatically enrolled in those courses, and they are then either a license course, if there's a license available, they're added to them, or they're just manually enrolled onto that course. And that's for onboarding. So if you've got a set of courses for people who are required to do this for their job, they are added to the tenant, they're immediately enrolled in those courses, and then they can complete those courses and start that life cycle. The automatic enrollment plugin kind of does a similar thing. Didn't exist when we put this in initially, as I say, started 2010. But it allows for more of a role-based type enrollment onto courses, where if my profile field says this, then I get added onto a course. If my profile field says that, then I get added onto this course. If this profile field and this profile field say these things, then I get added onto these courses. EMA also has the kind of same conditional access plugin, or a conditional access plugin that's the same as them, that's for tenant, it's for company. So if I belong to this tenant and my profile field says I am an IT person and it says I'm a senior manager, then I get added on to the extra courses for IT staff, for cybersecurity, what have you. So these kind of enrollment types start up the initial parts of your journey of the users into the compliance-based training that we're looking to provide. So back to the life cycle. As I said, we only want the users who need to be removed from the courses to be removed from the courses. We keep everybody else on there because they might be partway through. This is then handled by a scheduled task that runs in the background. It says, you've completed this course, you've hit this, either the time where I send you an email or this expiry date. I will remove you from the course, I will clear down your quiz, quiz interactions, I'll clear down choices, SCORM, H5P, assignments, all the things the user would do. I'll take away your grades and I'll remove them. And if they had a license, it will then update that license and say, you're finished with this one, you can be given another one now. This then allows the user to be re-enrolled in that course and start there from scratch. So, three scenarios I'm going to talk through. The first one is you're a company where every member of staff is required to undertake the same kind of generic training in data protection and cybersecurity. Some departments are required to do more involved training in those topics. So, for example, the IT department needs to have more knowledge on cybersecurity rather than the general overview. Your accounts department needs to know more about GDPR and data processing than the person who's just answering the phones. All of this is required for ISO compliance. Managers are then responsible for ensuring that their staff are compliant. So, as a manager in this hierarchy, I'd look at my staff and say, right, Derick, you're a new member of staff, I will enroll you on these 5 courses. You start that journey, you undertake those courses, you complete those courses. Once you've completed them and the recertification time hits, you're then cleared down automatically, emails are sent out, manager then gets that email sent to them and says, right, Derick needs to do the course again, and manager re-enrolls you on that course, and round and round and round it goes. Second scenario is more of an elective type of recertification. And in this case, it would be where members of staff are required for themselves and to be they need to have their own responsibility for the certification that they hold to be able to work on site. For example, if you're a hospital staff who are working in operating theatres, you need to have hand washing or other type courses to allow you to be in the room before anything can happen. And if you don't have that, you can't work. So your kind of certification stuff we're working through here is basically the idea of, are you fit for work or not? Managers are able to monitor to make sure that the staff is up to date, so they can look at reports on this. They can be informed by emails and reports to say that this is expired or done. And then if there's a risk then that the staff is not, the training is not in date, they can check the reports and say, is Derick able to go into this? No, he doesn't have all the full certification, so therefore go do that before you're allowed to go in this. Users self-enroll in the courses in this way. In this example, they complete as required. Emails are sent to the managers, users are cleared down, the staff then re-enroll on those courses, self-enroll. We found though that there has been some examples where staff are overly keen for this, so they've completed the course and 3 months later, just to make sure they're fully in, because if I have to have this to work, then I'm not going to get paid if I don't have all my certifications. So I re-enroll myself in the same course 3 months later, 6 months later, but I've not been cleared down yet. And that's where the clear down of the enrolment after a certain number of days, that's where that setting comes in. It means you can set it to say 6 months after or 3 months after I've completed that course, clear me down, but don't send an email yet until my training's about to expire. And it means I am still then able to re-enroll myself in that course. I'm able to sit within that life cycle, managers up to date, and if I ever fail or my training ever goes out of expiration and I've got 30 days before that happens, the manager's informed, the user's informed, but other than that, the system just continues on its way. The last scenario is more of a complicated one where staff are required to be certified in a number of different courses, depends on role or position. There's a lot of complicated assignment rules for the courses or workflow. And when staff are added in, they're immediately enrolled onto the onboarded courses, which is the EMA setting. And then depending on this profile information, so I am an IT, I am a manager in IT, or I am a sysadmin or a developer, then I am automatically enrolled on the courses that you set this for. You can even have, with the auto-enrollment plugin, you can even use any of the other restrictions plugins that you've got in Moodle. So there's another one we have used for clients, which is has completed another course. So you can have a trigger course for all of this, right? So I need to do the first GDPR course, the introduction one, and on completion of that, it then maps out, depending on my profile fields, onto the other ones that I have to do as a user. As you complete those, and then as that training expires, the manager and the user get their email, as always. You're unenrolled from that course and cleared down, and then next time you log in, because your profile field all matches all the auto-enrollment requirements, you get automatically re-enrolled in all those courses, and you continue on this life cycle. Last thing, which I've just mentioned, kind of the EMA parts of this course thing, is we have a certificate in there which gets saved. The EMA certificate type is admittedly quite old. As I say, we started building this in 2010. It was based in the original mod certificate that's been around forever, because it was the only certificate type that was available in Moodle 2 when we started building this. What it does allow for is it allows for white labeling of the same certificates. So there's 2 different new types we've added in, company types, which allow you to define per tenant the watermarking that's used, the logo that's used, the other parts that are put onto that certificate. So everyone gets the same text, but you might get different branding. More importantly, for what we're talking about here, that certificate gets saved for posterity. The user can see it in their dashboard, and the manager can view that from their reporting tables or their reporting pages. So you can check to make sure that certificate did happen. It's there, it's visited, they did get it. To allow that for the user, what we have is another block which replaces the standard core Moodle courses block called My Courses, and it's got 3 tabs on it. So there's the courses you're currently enrolled on, and it'll give you a list of those and overview of them and percentage of the way through. The completed courses, which will list all the courses you've completed that you've got recorded in all of the EMA tables for this, and the available courses. The main driver for us having this separate block is, one, well, we've got these other sets of tables where we're storing all this information, but also, if I give someone a license that's not been used yet, and this course is potentially available to them, that's not an enrolment. So therefore I can't list it in the enrolled courses because it's not happened. So we need to have some space to allow for these potential courses to exist, to show them to the users. And it's in that the available courses tab that you would see self-enrollment courses, blanket licenses, or licenses for courses that you have been given access to but just not used. Uneaten donuts, as it were, unwrapped uneaten donuts. As I said, self-enrollment courses have a valid license or are available from a blanket license. Completed courses have got lists of information of things like when you passed that, the date passed, the grade achieved, when it expired, linked to download your certificate. So the user can self-serve and find that information themselves. Managers can find it, but the users can get it. Oh, I need my certificate from there. I can go and get that. Or I can download all of them. As you'll see, there's a button up the top, which allows them just to get every single certificate that's there for them. How does that work for the manager then? So, as I said, EMA introduces this whole idea of this company hierarchy. Now, its hierarchies are bespoke and personalised to the tenants, and the best way I can ever use to describe them is the really rubbish toy that was the bucket full of monkeys, a barrel full of monkeys, where you would pull them out, they're plastic, and one hangs off the top, and the other ones hang underneath, and you're just building this useless thing, this tree shape. That's kind of what you're doing with departments or with hierarchies within this. It's basically how you set them up. You start with the top of the company, and then you add on underneath. You can have more complex layouts as well. You can have, or for far more complex layouts or for branding purposes, you can have the idea of a parent and child company. So tenants in EMA have their own branding and their own sets of departments, but a child company, the managers of the parent company are able to see the users of the child company, are able to log in and view that company, but it has a different set of branding, has a different set of users, has a different set of courses. So you can have different sets of rules for compliance in this too. As I said, it's a flexible setup, works in the whole idea of this barrel full of monkeys, and the whole point of this hierarchy is for reporting purposes. How do you want your user data to be sliced up and viewed by the manager? Is it by location? You know, we have offices in Glasgow, London, Edinburgh. In those offices, we've got IT, we've got HR, we've got sales. Underneath that, we may have any other kind of company hierarchy you would want or design or put in there. But if I'm the head of IT, I might want to see all the IT staff irrespective of which of those hierarchy or which of those locations they're in. So I can also set another set of departments up or underneath this hierarchy that just says IT and then Glasgow, Edinburgh, London, and then split it up underneath this. And as a manager, if I'm a company manager, I sit at the top and I can see everyone, but as a department manager, which is another role that's introduced, I get to see only the people in the departments that I am assigned to. Users can be assigned to multiple departments, and that includes department managers. But yes, it's just a way for splitting up users into groups for reporting. What does that look like? EMA has these sets of reports which are basically completion reports for the courses which are there that we're storing in this other sets of data, the other sets of tables. The initial view has got an overview of all the courses that are on there. I can search this by the company hierarchy system I've got there, as you can see by the drop down. And every single one of these reports, or anywhere that you're managing users or viewing users in EMA, has this hierarchy there that allows me just to say, right, I just want to see Glasgow IT staff, and it will only show the IT staff in Glasgow. I can search for the users, search for courses here, and I can search by date in this. And it gives a kind of summary view of what these are. There's options there to show how you show this data. Is it the total of all the users who are enrolled in the course? Is it the total of all the users who have ever been enrolled in the course? Is it just the people who are in date, people who have expired? I don't want to see this as all the users who are in my company, so as a percentage. So if you have a client that says, I need to have 95% of all my staff who have completed and are in date in this course, then I can use this report, these views, to see that this is all okay. It all shows green. And you can set those as defaults in the settings for the plugins for the reporting. So you can have this whole idea. It sets what you see for the first time you open these up as a manager. If I click onto the show me the course information, it will then give you the details of this. Again, I can see the department structures in there for me to search through, or I can just use a user search, which is profile field or optional profile field. I can use the first and last initials to look through this. And it gives me a list of all the users who are in my purview, when they started the course, if the license was allocated to them, when they completed the course, when that's valid to, the grade they got for that. I can download a certificate. And it shows me also a percentage bar, which, if they're still enrolled in that course, will give you fuller information as a tooltip, if I hover over that, to say, Derick has done these 3 things for the required course completion on these dates and maybe got these grades. So I can see how far through, 75% or whichever, what have they not done, where have they got to. All of these courses are interlinked. So here, you've got the list of users, and if I click on, say, one of the users is on there, it's going to show me this completion information from the other point of view. So you have the idea of, here's the courses with the users in them, but then there's also the view of, here's the users and what courses have they done. The initial page of that from the dashboard looks like this. Big list of users, department they're in, again, normal search stuff, when they were created, when they last accessed, and I can search through that. If I click on one of their names, in the same way as if I clicked on the course detail course detail page, it will take me through to the courses that user has done that's been recorded from day dot. I can see that this user has completed one of the courses, has been given a license for the other one, they've have a valid date for it, which is expired in this case, but they're been allowed to start this other course, but they haven't started it yet. So every single course enrollment, every single course completion for every course that user has is being recorded and can be viewed here. And again, you can change how that looks. There's buttons to change the view of this. Is this going to be expired courses? Do I just want to see what they have right now? What's in date for them? And if I click on those courses, it will take me back to the course information view. So I can move from one to the next all the way through without having to go back to the dashboard, pick the course, find it, go through. If I need to find out the other ones, I just click on it. It would take me to each of those courses in turn, or each of those users in turn. And again, you have this idea of the percentage through. There's some management parts on this, some of which are available without turning on editing. So in this case, that user's been given a license. I want to revoke that license to give it to somebody else because they've not used it. Unwrap donut. If I turn editing on, however, I can then do other things on there, like the date they passed that wasn't actually the date they passed it. They passed it around some other time. You know, the course completion information wasn't set properly for that course, so it never got recorded. Moodle records it next time it gets set as now, but it was 2 weeks ago. Somebody's messed up setting up the course, as an example. I can change the grade. I can change the if they've changed their name on this, if the user's changed their name, I can regenerate the certificate for them. Or if I've changed the date or any of the dates or the grade for it, I can regenerate the certificate, and the one which is saved for them in the system will then match what that information has. I can completely remove this record from the system for that user. So they don't have this anymore. It's not there. It's not recorded. They enrolled on that course by accident. We've removed them from it, but it should never have been on their record. I'm going to remove this. We don't care about it. The other thing we've got on here is there's a button that allows you to manually add a course completion for that user for a course that's in there. You have a face-to-face training event that somebody turned up to, they weren't registered on it, they actually were there, they passed it, they've got everything that was required, but the system hasn't automatically enrolled them or recorded that information for them, so you can add that in manually. We're talking about compliance. So, what's a more compliance overview for this? We have a completion overview report. Again, you can filter this by department, you can search for courses, you can search for users and stuff. This gives a RAG chart for the users, for the manager to see how the users are in this system. So in this case, we've got great, either they've never been enrolled in that course or they have a license and they never used it. Blue, they're undertaking that course right now. They haven't passed it, they haven't completed it. Green, they've completed that course and that training is now in date. Amber, they've completed that course and their training is due to expire and that's a setting that you set, this notional thing of this will expire after or warn after 30 days, whatever you want that to be. Red, that training has expired. And then you've got other states. The user's training has expired, but they've never re-enrolled in that. They've been given a license and not re-enrolled in that course. So Darth Vader, as I said, that one, we had that entry on there. We've got a license, but they're out of date. They have a red and grey line. Other courses where somebody's training has expired, but they're in the process of doing it, they'll be red and blue, or they will be green and blue, or amber and blue, depending on what their status is. So you can quickly see, I as a manager, have all my staff reached or got the completion of the compliance of all the courses that they have, and they're in date, or are they going to expire at some point soon, and I have to do something about that. Same thing again, if I hover over those with the mouse, it will give me a tooltip that says this is the last time they completed the course, if that information was there. This is their current enrollment, this is the date they completed it, if that information was there. So you can see again the kind of overview of what the information is for that user without moving away from here. Talked about notifications. So it's the other part of this. We've recorded all this information, but we want the users to do this again. We want the managers to do this for them again. So we have sets of emails, email templates which are set up within email for a number of different things, but one of the main things in this case is for these warning emails that are sent out. And these can be configured for, do I send this, is this email enabled entirely? Yes, no. Is this email enabled for the user and I CC the manager in? Well, I don't want to CC the manager, but I just want the user to get this. Do I have this idea of, well, there's somebody who's really their boss, but they're not on the system and they need to know, so an external manager or somebody else? There's a way of setting that up in email to say, with a profile field, use this email address and send them an email as well, CC'd in when you email the user to say their training has expired. So you can turn that on or off or not for those ones. There's digest emails that get sent out to managers. In this week, these users' training is going to expire or has expired. You need to do something about it. Nothing's happened so far. And then you can customize this, as I say. So you can turn them on or off, but more than that, you can define other people who get CC'd into this. You could define other people who the reply to is set from. And they could be users on the system, so you select a user, or it can be an email address that you put in there. You can change the subject, the body, the signature. There's templates you can use from this for placeholders that you can put in to say like first name, last name, and they're selectable off of all those wee blue bits underneath. Might not all be pertinent for the emails that are being sent, but they will have templates in there for, or placeholders in there for parts of the email you're being sent. So, for example, if I am purchasing a course on this system and it says here's the course you purchased or a training event that happened, you're not going to have them in these emails because it doesn't fit. But it will have username, it will have course, and it will have other information on there. Each of those you can define by language. Now, the question would be, why don't you use language pack in Moodle to change all this? Well, you can, but we're talking multi-tenant, and therefore these emails can then be set per tenant to have their own set of language that's being used, their own phrases that are being used, and you can set the default in the language pack and then configure it further for each of the tenants. The other thing that's in there is for the warning emails. Do we resend these? I want to send this, you haven't completed a course, or your training is about to expire several times until the user does the task. I want to nag them. I send it 3 times, I want to send it every Monday, and then after that, well, they're on their own. That's the other last option you have in this. So now we have the user journey, where they have been enrolled in the course in some method. The course has been completed by them. That information is then retained on course completion. They're cleared down from their course as required. They're able to then take exactly the same course again. That saves you management on those courses. All the previous course summary information is being retained in the reporting tables for them. The emails are the users are notified by reminders and emails. Managers can then report only on their users, their staff, the ones they care about. Summary and detail information is available for them for as much of that information as being kept. Compliance-based RAG reporting is available for them. And then you've got comprehensive sets of reporting, search tools and filtering by department structure and so on, and automation of user management with notifications, so they don't have to do anything. It's there for them once it's been set up. EMA is multi-tenant. There's no limit on the number of tenants you can have with this. You can set them up with the number of users you have, number of courses you've got. You can share those courses for storage efficiency, as I said. Each of those tenants can have their own branding. They can have their own URL. Each of those tenants can have their own capabilities. Users can belong to multiple tenants. They can have different roles in different tenants. So somebody could be a user in one, but a manager in the other. And they can switch between those tenants from the menu structures. So in summary, compliance-based training has different needs from standard training. Core Moodle provides the backbone of all of this because the completion parts of the course completion parts in Core Moodle provide the information that's required. And non-standard Moodle in EMA, for example, can bring you the rest of the way there. I'm going to open the floor to questions. I think we've got maybe 14 minutes left. 5 minutes left, I've been told. Yes.
Do you have an API to connect YOMAD with systems to get users in, because this is constantly changing and the results out, so you can, for example, automatically prevent someone from exit a system that he's not licensed anymore?
Yes. Short answer, there's a comprehensive set of web services which, as well as the core Moodle web services that say, create me a user. There is web services on there that say, create a company, add a user to a company, create a department in that company, create a license, add a user to that, or allocate that license to a user for this course. So yeah, there's a whole load of stuff that's been in there and added.
Can a user be a student in 2 tenants?
Yes.
Is that new?
Yes, as of
4.5?
4.3? Yeah, as of 4.3. So we introduced this idea of company context. Previously, managers and users and people who were members of companies existed within the system context. So in the context of the system, a user was assigned to a tenant. But from 4.3 on, we added a new company context in. And so in the context of a company, a user can be in this tenant as a manager. And in the context of the company of this tenant, they can be a user. So they can be in multiple ones. When they log in, it will give them the view of the tenant they were last accessed through. But there's also then a switcher in the kind of bar along the top, where if they click on it, it will see all the tenants they're allocated to. And by choosing the other tenant, it will then show them the courses for that other tenant. So they have to be cognizant of which tenant they did the courses in. Otherwise, they log in and look at their dashboard and go, where'd that course go? But if they switch it to the other view, then they'll see the courses from that tenant. There's a kind of complicated thing in that, because who does the course belong to? If you are paying for a user to go through those courses and that's a third party, then the tenant owns the courses, but actually the user did the work. So it's kind of a grey area of both. But yes, to answer your question.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I'd like to ask you about the My Courses overview block.
Yes.
So would it be possible to, instead of showcasing the courses to the users by active and completed, would it be possible to display the courses by the enrollment, mandatory, elective, or company-driven?
That's an excellent question. And I'm going to say maybe. The reason why I'm going to say maybe is we have a client who's asked us for that information, that they want to have, they've not quite signed off on it yet, because obviously we are a Moodle partner. EMA is developed by clients of ours asking us for cool things, or as Lou has put in our website, sometimes I drink too much coffee and get really excited about things, and then we add them. But yeah, they've asked for exactly that. Within the idea of a tenant, there are courses which are mandatory, and when you turn them on, in the course management page, the plan right now is you can mark courses as being mandatory, and then when there are mandatory courses for that tenant, those mandatory courses will appear in a fourth tab. So the user can then see the ones they have to do, and they can see that overview of it. And then in this case, because we're looking at compliance, those courses are mandatory compliance courses, and it then gives a much better view for that user. So yes-ish.
Forgive me if I missed something, but as far as I know, Moodle Workplace, when you use the feature of certification, once the role expires, once the enrollment expires, and we have the email saying that we must do the certification again and all, but it clears the history down, and it allows you to make the course again. But if when the certification expires, usually I have some clients that make this. Usually you have to pay for another certification. You are not allowed to do the certification again just because it's expired. Is it something like an enrolled mode or something that can handle with this?
So, if I can summarize, when your user in a tenant has completed a course, when they go back to do that course again, there has to be a payment made for that course allowed, yes? Licenses are exactly that. That tenant has purchased an access for 50 users to undertake the manual handling course. Whether that has been the first time you do it, second time you do it, third time you do it, you can define that in that license to say, this license will run for 20 years, or this license will run for a year. When the license runs out, you can't allocate anybody from it. They have to then get another set of licenses to allow you to re-enroll in that course. I try to stay away from workplace because I don't want to have any form of accusation that we're stealing ideas, even though we've been around much longer. And accusations, I just don't want to get involved in any of this. We are a Moodle partner, is exactly what we do, and there is absolutely a place in the ecosystem for all of us. But yeah, that's how you would use it. The license is part of that. I have a talk on Thursday afternoon, which is going to be talking about using licenses and selling that, and selling courses with licenses through EMA. So I can maybe go into that in a bit more detail and then.
Any more questions, guys?
Yep, one down there.
Is it possible to have multiple courses for one topic, for example, a consecutive course, so you still get the same kind of license, so you're still allowed to proceed?
Yes. So if you're using licenses, enrollment and on the action of enrollment on that license is you undertake, you are given the potential to access that course that could be immediate or not. We have an idea of program licenses where instead of it being here's a list of 12 courses that you can allocate out to 100 users any way you want. Here's a list of 5 courses you can allocate out to 100 users, but they get all of them or they get none of them. So the allocation once gives an enrollment onto, or the potential of accessing all of those courses, or an enrollment in all of those courses all at the same time. There is a thing as well, which I considered putting into this, but I was concerned about time, called learning paths in EMA. And learning paths have this whole prescriptive idea of, here's a section with courses in it that I can do one after the other. Here's a section that comes after this section that I can do free from. I can access them however I want. Or here's another section that's got, again, prescriptive courses, and you build that however you want. So you then present them through a learning path block to the user instead of using my courses, but it means that they are then prescribed to go through, finish this one before you get to the next one, finish this one before you get to the next one, and you're giving them this journey, enforcing this journey on them. But again, you can do that with the auto-enrollment courses. You don't need to use licenses for that. You can, because there's ways of this, but you can use the auto-enrollment. The enrollment by other course, completion of other course will allow that for you too. Oh yeah, this is mine.